Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony. Thank you for joining us live here on our special Sunday live stream, where we are going to be going through the best practices when it comes to filling out your turn sheet. Before we get started, I just want to take a quick walk through a slight refresh on the stream screen. As you can see, things have changed a little bit. First of all, my head's a little bigger. I kind of resized this box a little bit and move things around. You can see at the very bottom of the screen, there is that progress bar. Now, that progress bar, like I mentioned yesterday, is a new feature with Coffee where you set a goal and then you can show like a progress bar towards the goal. So for today, just as an experiment, that goal is set as 2 coffees, one-time donations. And when you do a coffee donation, you'll see the progress bar progress. If you're wondering about coffee, that link over there will take you to our coffee page where you can either make a one-time coffee donation. Caffeination is always appreciated, and or join our community with one of the various tiers for a more regular monthly contribution. You can also do that using the QR code that is right there. And you can use that QR code to do the exact same thing. Or if Patreon's more your style and this won't have anything to do with this stuff on screen, of course, you can head to the Patreon link, which is in the description. Now, I've been debating, and I hadn't decided coming into this live stream what to show you. Because, so for example, we have a number of different sheets and screens and various things that I'll show you, but we have different campaigns, and in each different campaign, the GMs have a slightly different preference. So before I get into exactly what it is that we're going to be doing here, what I will say is that regardless of the best practices that I'll be communicating to you and sharing with you today, you need to have a conversation with your GM and ensure that they're picking up what you're putting down, or rather understanding what it is that you're writing. Ladies and gentlemen, boom, from the Juggernauts. And look at that progression. Boom. Halfway to our goal. Boom, 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 boom. That's what I'm talking about. Proving our system correct. Thank you, Juggernaut. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So the question I was asking myself, oh, big slow target. We have reached our goal, ladies and gentlemen. Bang. That's what it is. You know what I'm going to do as a result of that enthusiastic support for our system? I'm going to show you the Klingon turn as it is today. So this is like inside information. Highly classified. Here we go. Oh, I'm going to regret this. I know I'm going to regret this. All right. I'm going to show you how it is, and we'll see how this changes things. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the sheet. Drink it in, ladies and gentlemen. This is the real deal, Holyfield. This is what I got on my spreadsheet. So if you are looking to grab some attention, this is what you got. All right. So first things first. If you're looking at this sheet, and you know what, I'm going to just change the zoom on this ever so slightly because obviously you can't quite see. Let me just see if I can adjust this. Hold on. Reset. That is not the button I was looking to adjust. Yeah, you're seeing me doing it live, ladies and gentlemen. That's the beauty of a live stream. Here we go. Let's resize that box. Not the box I was looking for, obviously. Okay. I'm looking for the desktop capture. That's what I'm looking to adjust. Okay. So let's see if I can adjust this. You're probably going to see a little bit of my browser bar, but that's okay. I'll crop it after the fact. Hold on. Let's reset this. We're going to do a crop. we will crop the bottom. There you go. And crop the top. Shall we? Nope, wrong one. There you go. Okay. So for the purposes of today, this is what we're going to be looking at. Right. Okay. So as you can see here, we have our generic spreadsheet. You will notice on the bottom, there is a number of tabs. We have the balance sheet, which in this case is Klingons. We have the movement tab, which you will see there. We have the MSIT, which is the master ship information table, which is basically your shopping list. We have the R&D, and then we have our tech tree. So here is the balance sheet. We're going to start off with the balance sheet and move our way forward. Now, before I do that, because I like to tease, let's jump into the chat real quick and see who's who in the zoo. Daniel is first in the house saying he's looking forward to this. Jim, me too. Kevin is in the house. Afternoon. Eugene, I'm ready. Whatever I can do to make the GM's lives easier, my turns more logical, and hopefully make a game with 16 people less likely to bog down. Yeah. Lord Lawless. Booyah. Daniel's all about the dance. Whoop, whoop. Now in the spreadsheet talk, Dancing Tony. Eugene, same dance every time, I think. Well, you know, I mean, there's only so much I can do with this little box here. Lord Lawless, paying bribes for intel. Boom, boom, boom. Nested videos. It's Tony all the way down. Woo! Okay, here we go. So I got you all excited about that. Let's dive in. Okay. So as we talked about, there is, so just the anatomy of the sheet. So as you can see here at the very top row, we've got I am the Klingons, and you've got all the years, or the turn numbers. So you can see in the current New Worlds campaign, we are we just completed turn 71, and we're going into turn 72 for next week. And those tie in with a year or season. So you can see that in the next row below here. This is, for example, in my case, 100F. Actually, you know what? I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this. Can I zoom in? Wrong button. No. No, not able to do it right now. Okay. So, right. So we've got the years, 100 fall, 101 spring, 101 fall, 102 spring, and so on. You've got in the fourth row here, you've got the status of your economy. And as we shared sort of in the live stream yesterday, and you saw in sort of the narrative that was shared, because of a fumble on my end, I had to assume war status. So you can see here I've got 4 turns of war. I just kind of put in 4 W's. So I can see when I went to war, which was in turn 70, and when my war turns will end, which will be in turn 73. You can see the total resources and plans. So this is my income. And as you can see, it was 52 the year or the turn previous. It is now 53, and I've just forecasted that going forward. Diplomacy, if I had a diplomat in action and they were performing one of the missions they can do is basically an economic development mission. And so they basically swap trade goods back and forth. So it'll be 1 EP that I would gain from that, and that would be noted here. Transfers and adjustments, this could be a whole number of different things. Usually the GM, depending on the GM, will put in here things that may happen as far as rich strike. You find a particularly productive vein of ore or something in your mining operations, or there's a strike, a labor strike, and you lose income, or some kind of random event will occur potentially, and it might affect and or adjust your income. This would also be where you would see in trade and exchange, you would see your trade income potentially in this column as well. So, for example, we've talked about in yesterday's live stream the convoys going back and forth between the Romulans and the brain Klingons. Thank you. That's what we're talking about today. So the Klingons and the Romulans have trade going back and forth. You'll see that displayed here. As we go into the actual money honey, you will see that we've got interest on debt. So after every turn, you will see at the end of turn at the bottom, there is a total amount of debt that you will accumulate. That will then get translated into an amount of interest that will get calculated on the interest on debt column or row here. So basically, you can see here that if you round that up, it's 6, or in this case, 0.6 EP that I'm paying in interest. And so it just rolls over, and you can see 15 goes to 1.5 and so on and so forth. So you can see how that goes. Next, you can see your fleet cap overage. So this is a number that is based on at peacetime, you are limited to the number of ships that your economy can basically support, and this is determined by the total number of defense factors or fleet cap that you're supporting. Now, this number on my sheet is a little out of whack, but based on your technology level, you have a multiple that you can support, which is basically your income times the tech multiple, which you can see here for W era is 5, Y is 6, M is 7, GW 8. I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. Big sneeze. So yeah, you can see that there. So for example, here, if you, I don't know if you can see this, but there is a number taken from the cell above here in the formula. So in this case, it'll be 52 times 7 gives you 264. And unfortunately, just because of the way it is, let's just fix this right now. We'll copy and we'll just paste it all the way along here. Pew. And you can see that number's been adjusted. So you can see that my fleet cap in peacetime is 364, 371 based on that income. And that is the total number of defense factors or fleet cap that you can support. And as we went through the show yesterday, the Klingons are well below that number. Important to note, when you assume war status, you don't have fleet cap as a concern, or limited war status for that matter. All right, so that's fleet cap overage. The next row is repairs. Now, repairs, everyone's going to have battles. As we've seen, the Northern and Southern Alliance have battles in action right now, and so that's a big concern for them. You're going to put in the money that you're going to spend on repairs in this column, and I'll show you how I fill that in myself is in an example here. Then below that, you've got your two different construction rows for spring and fall. And so if you're playing in the New Worlds campaign and you're trying to understand how many slipways I have, this is where you're going to see it. So you can see here that that the Klingons have one cruiser, well, I should say the total number of slipways that you can build in spring and fall. So in spring, I can build one M-era cruiser because I have a CAM slipway. And for the Klingons, this looks a little different because of the Ds, Fs, Es as slipways, and you're just trying to understand that. So as we put this in here, CAs are cruisers, or Ds in my case. And so you can see that I have M-era slipways and one in each fall and spring here. I've got 3 destroyer slipways, which are the F4s. but those are Y-era slipways. Those are F4 Y-era slipways. And then you've got 3 M-era frigate slipways, which are the E-era or the E slipways for the Klingons. It looks a little different, or might come across a little different for the Klingons, just because of the nomenclature around ships. But generally speaking, for you, frigates, FFs, destroyers, DDs, cruisers, CAs, and so on. If you had CL slipways or light cruiser slipways, you would also see that here, as the ISC do, and so on and so forth. So you can see in each season, spring and fall, how many ships I can potentially build. And then in this column, you will see, sorry, this row, I keep saying column, it should be row. In this row, overbuilds. So overbuilds are anything you will build over top of the normal build rate. So if you're going to build more than 1 CA or more than 3 DDs or more than 3 FFs, then you would put that in the overbuild section as well. Here we have conversions. So anytime you're taking a ship, like for example, in my case, D4s, or actually if you want to look down here, you can see, for example, you've got D6 is my M-era base template for a cruiser. So you can see here that I'll be getting a D6G. That's a troop ship variant of the D6. So when I get that, for example, I can convert. If I don't want to build it right off the bat, I could convert it into that. This is often used for command ship platforms because command cruiser slipways are their own thing. And so in order to build a command cruiser, you need to build the CA and then convert it into a CC. I can show you what that looks like, but basically any conversions that you would do, those costs are input here. Then, of course, you've got research and development. Now, it's important to note that you don't actually put anything in this column or this row here. Rather, this row is filled in from the research and development tab. So essentially, don't touch this because there's a formula in this cell that you will see there, this complicated thing here. Don't touch this row. Just leave it as is. And basically, you see the rows that have the color blue here. Don't touch those. Leave those alone, and it'll automatically formulate the right answer for you. And the GM can tweak it if there's any problem, or he can replace it. And then, of course, there's the generic catch-all other, which I use personally to be able to note base construction and things like that. Beyond that, we have expenses during and after combat. I rarely use this, but as we move into the M and GW eras, this will be used more often. So for example, you have seen that the Carnarvon have drone bombardment ships, and here you would put in that drone bombardment cost. Every time you use missiles or drones in a fight, it's going to cost you money. But you don't know that before you put the money or before you put your turn in. So what'll end up happening is you'll submit your turn with your information filled out. The GM, after the combat is complete, will fill this in for you after the fact. They will put in the costs so that next turn you'll see that. Now, be careful because you know that there is a cost associated with using drones in any particular combat. So you can reasonably predict how much that's going to cost you, assuming you have drones and you know how much they cost, but you're not going to know the total cost until after the fact. So it's like a credit card, basically. You're going to be incurring the cost and pay for it later. But there is a limit to how much you can have because, and we'll talk about how much you can go into deficit here in a moment. Also field repair, which again is something the Gorn can take special advantage of. Other folks can do it as well, but field repair is something that's a technology that comes later down the line. Don't need to worry about it for right now. Replacement fighters and PFs. This is the bane of Jim's existence when we're talking about the hydrants and fighters, but we don't have to worry about that because fighters aren't an issue at this point. And then, of course, transfers to allies. If you have allies, as in like the Northern or Southern Alliance, you can transfer funds back and forth, and that can be noted here. As I mentioned before, we've got the end of turn, which is your, in this case, my negative income. You've got the peace limited war fleet cap, which is limited or labeled there. Diplomacy rollover, which is the amount of EP that you can bank or save in peacetime, turn after turn, based on the amount of diplomats you have out and about. Important to note that in peacetime, you cannot carry a balance in the sense you can't save up money, but you can do that in wartime, ironically, because you will most likely never do it in wartime. Speaking about deficit spending, here's the basic rule. If you are making less than 50 EP, then you can only ever go to a negative 10 balance when you are at peace. Negative 10 EP is the default deficit spending that you can acquire or incur while at peace. Once you get over 50%, because it's going to be based off 20% of your gross income. So if you had a total income of 100, which I've only seen happen once in a game, then you could conceivably, during peacetime, go to deficit spending of negative 20. I think right now, because I'm at 53, I think it's like I can go to negative 10 point something. But not really too much to worry about. But basically, if you're under 50 EP, negative 10 is your cap as far as how low you can go for peacetime deficit spending. And if you are above that, over 50, then it's 20%. So take the total number of your econ, times it by 0.2. 0.2, and that'll tell you what the number is. In fact, let's just do a quick calculation based on 53 EP right here, right now, 53 times 0.2 is 10.6. So I can assume 10.6 in deficit spending during peacetime. However, when you're at limited war and or war status, that ain't a problem, and you can go to max deficit spending, which is maximum deficit spending is spending as much in a turn so that your income brings you back to zero. So that at the end of your turn or at the start of your next turn, your starting balance after your income is calculated is zero or a positive number, a positive integer. If by chance you don't make enough to make up for the deficit spending that you had last turn, then you get nothing. You get no ability to spend money on research and development. You have no ability to be able to build ships. You cannot spend money. All your money goes to your debt and paying that off. And that means that you likely start your turn with a negative number. You don't get to spend any money on anything, and you have to wait till next turn for your balance sheet to get into the black, so to speak. All right, so that's a quick rundown of that. I'm going to take a second and take a breath, and let's go into the chat and quickly discuss and any sort of questions that you might have about that quick summary. I will then get into the specific numbers and how I write things down so you can see how I do it and best practice in that regard. But we have a couple GMs in the chat right now so they can comment too as to their preference. Okay. All right. Eugene, please increase size of your spreadsheet in Excel, not video. Yeah, I know you want me to do that, and I can't do that. I'm sorry to say. View, zoom. Hold on, stand by. Boom. All right. I have now increased it to 200%. You'll have to excuse me. It's my Google Sheets knowledge. I've made this bigger now so we can go through that a little bit better. I'll go back and do a quick recap so that's easier for you. All right, Eugene. Whoop, there we go. I have hopefully addressed that concern for you. Should be lower right corner. Yeah, it was in the view menu for, this is in Google Sheets, by the way. In Google, there's a zoom spot in the second row. Look under the file edit view. Yep, done. There are so many types of Klingon M era FFs. I decided to just put MFF instead of E4M or E3. So true. The E era or the E category, there's so many. Carl, how much does a slipway cost? Oh, well, we can get into that in a moment. Carl, if you're leaving war status and you're over peacetime fleet cap, could you mothball excess ships? Theoretically, yes. However, if you go into peacetime and you're over your fleet cap, then you'll just start incurring the fleet cap overage that we talked about. But yes, you could mothball ships, but there's a limit on how many you can mothball at a time. Let's hear it for Lizard Engineering. Hey-oh, Bill's in the house. Oh, thank you. So much easier to see. Okay. So let's get back into this. You can see here we've got a more zoomed in version. So just as a recap, you've got, one thing I didn't talk about is turns at war. So here you can see my total war turns. Take note, my folks and friends. So this is my total war turns, and you can see that that's where my total war turns are. You incur war turns every turn that you're at war, and then it takes 2 turns at peace to be able to work off 1 war turn. We've got income, adjusted, and then, of course, like I say, we've got interest on debt, fleet cap overage, repairs, construction, overbuilds, and so on and so forth. Now, let's get into how I write this stuff out. So, for example, let's talk about repairs. Now, I can't make this any bigger. I apologize. I can't make the little notes bigger. But what I do is I put in, so in here, for example, I will insert a note. So keeping in mind, first of all, this is all in Google Sheets. And why do we use Google Sheets? Google Sheets can be shared between the GM and the player, and they don't need to be saved locally on your device. So in the past, for example, I had used Excel and had just sent Excel sheets to the GM. The GM would then load that up in Google Sheets, and it would just convert it, and away you go. There were some slight formatting issues, like ways that Google Sheets and Excel weren't playing nice together. And there are some sort of like little things about Google Sheets that irritate me. But generally speaking, I, resistant to change, have adopted the Google Sheets, and that's how we're all going to be playing it in our various New Worlds or Into the Void campaigns as we go forward. Excuse me. So So that's where we're at when it comes to that. So that's how you can see that going forward. So what I do is I insert a note, and then in the note, I put in a description of what's going on. So for example, let's look what that looks like in repairs. So in repairs, you could have multiple repairs happening in different hexes, right? Because you could have multiple Y docks or ships in various bases that are getting repaired. So I start off with the hex number to indicate where this repair is going to take place. In this case, Kilo 49. In Kilo 49, there, if you went to the map, you would see that there is a YDK there, and the YDK can repair a total of 8 points of damage. Now, an F4, which is the 4 ships that are getting repaired here, an F4 takes 2 points of damage to repair. Okay, and at a YDK, at the repair rate of 0 point or half an EP per point of damage getting repaired, half an EP per point, 2 points, 1 EP per ship, 4 ships, 4 points, and that's what you can see here. So the way I've written that is KK49, which is the hex in which the repair is occurring, the number and designation of ships that are being repaired, 4 times F4, meaning 4 F4s are being repaired, which equals 4 EP. That's how I write it, and I make it super clear for the GM to say, hey, that's what I'm doing. That's repairs. By example, let's look at the build. So in this case, for example, in the construction tab for spring, we can see that I can build 1 cruiser, I can build 3 destroyers, and I can build 3 frigates. Now in this particular example, I'm doing what's called down building, which is where I can take a slipway that normally builds a destroyer, and I can you can do this for 2 slipways of any designation. Could be a cruiser, could be a light cruiser, could be a destroyer, whatever. Frigates don't go any lower. So that's how that looks. But you can only do a maximum of 2 slipways. So I have 2 slipways in the destroyer category, down building 2 E4Ms, or my M era frigates. So let's go through the total calculation of ships here. I'm building 1 cruiser, M-era cruiser, which is a D6M. I am building 3 out of my M-era frigate slipways, E4Ms. It's just basically a zooped up frigate. I'm down building out of my destroyer slipways 2 E4Ms. Those cost 2.5 EP a pop. Oh, look at that. Someone's getting in. Daniel Eastlin is now, because he's the GM, he now has access to this, and he's doing that. So I'm building 2 E4Ms at 5 EP, and then 1 F4, which also costs 2.5 EP. But you're saying, Tony, you've made a mistake. What are you talking about? Well, Tony, if you look at your slipways, you can see that you've only got 3 destroyer slipways, but they're all YTech era slipways. You can't build M-Tech ships out of those YTech slipways. You are correct. How do I get around that? Well, when I look at my conversions, what I've put in here is in that same turn, I have upgraded 2 of my F4 or destroyer slipways from YTech to M-Tech. To answer Carl's question about slipways, the slipways cost different amounts per slipway, but to upgrade a slipway from a previous level of tech to a new one costs 5 EP. So I have 2 slipways, which I'm upgrading, 2 destroyer slipways I'm upgrading from Y to M era, and in that same turn, I can take 2 of those slipways and build M era ships out of it. So that's how that's working. But going into the conversions, ships, and bases, so I'm upgrading 2 F4, and I put in brackets YTech just to clarify, because in this case, it could get confusing. So 2 F4, which are my destroyer YTech slipways, 2 M-Tech, 2 DD. So basically, when the GM Daniel upgrades this as per the nomenclature that we're using on this particular sheet, as opposed to it being F4s, they will be designated DD, DDM by example, to show that they are M era destroyer slipways. And he'll probably leave the F4 to designate that's a Y era destroyer slipway. You can see here I got research and development. We'll get into that tab in a moment. And then other. So in the other tab, I use this personally to specifically describe base construction. because base construction is definitely its own thing. Technically, you could put that in your construction tab, arguably, but I like to put it in other specifically because base construction being separate from ships is sort of an important thing. Daniel can tell me. Daniel can tell me whether he likes this use or how he does it. So how do I write down what bases I'm building and how I build them? Well, you can see here, as per the repair tab, I start with the hex in question. So in this case, November 37. This was the destination of the Tug to Battle Stations roleplay that you read and saw or heard me read in yesterday's live stream. If you haven't heard that, then please go back and check it out. So the Battle Tug went to November 37, and that was in turn 70. So in turn 71, they can start construction of what they were there to build, which in this case is a YBS. So they're starting with a YBS construction. So in November 37, I am doing YBS construction, and I put the completion date in because it's a two-turn or two-step construction. So it's happening in 101 spring, meaning the construction will complete in 102 spring. So I put that in. Completion date 102S. That's how I write it, and that way it's perfectly clear. And if for whatever reason I've done something wrong or there's some issue around misunderstanding in a one-step or two-step construction, then it can be readily observed and identified by the GM there, and they can make the appropriate change as required. Fair? And that's pretty much it when it comes to that. There's nothing else I can put in there on those different tabs. So let's take a second and what do we got here? So Carl, oh, thank you. So much easier to see. Yes. Kevin, that's a lot of EP for research. Yes, well, we'll get into reason why that is in a second. Daniel Eastland, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Bill Smith, research or die. Look at North-South War in New Worlds. Daniel, the GM loves notes that describe where bases are being built. So you heard it here from the GM live to you. He likes that kind of stuff. So if that's what you like to see, then as the GM, then us as players, it's on us to be able to give that to you. All right, so are there any other questions when it comes to the balance sheet? Because I will move on to the movement tab here in a moment. As you're doing that, I'm going to bring up the movement tab, and here we go. Okay, so here in the movement tab, we can see a couple things. Now, there's a little bit of buttonology, which is a bit of an issue for me and my use of Google Sheets. But here I'll just kind of do the quick and dirty when it comes to describing this stuff. Now, certainly I could do this a little bit better in the sense that we could organize this a little bit better. But as it currently stands, this is what my movement tab looks like. So, for example, we have an R&D team here, which is in this is the starting location of where that unit is, and then the finished location. Now, this particular unit is not changing, and I will usually put in words like mission or something here. Why do I do that? I do that because it forces the GM to look at the cell comment tab to be able to find out what it is that I'm doing. So in this case, for example, hard to see, I know for you guys, it says R&D for strategic tech. Now, this is part of the R&D team swapped between me and the Romulans. So this R&D team is on the Romulan homeworld, and we are currently executing a mission or like doing collaborative research in the strategic category for tech. Make sense? And as we go down the rest, you can see we have a starting location for the unit. So, for example, you can see here in the red, this is where this unit started in Hotel 37, or Hotel 37, and then it's moving to Kilo 37. That's my intention. And so that goes all the way down here. Now, one thing to note here, you'll notice these bold, these are basically fleets. So you see Red Fleet, Home Fleet, Alpha, what's this say? Oh, Sea Atlas Dagger Team. So yeah, before I go into the fleets, I will apologize. So for example, when you look at the D3 and the D4 Echo, these are the exploration or survey ships. Both of these ships have a Dagger team or a Prime team on them. to be able to properly note that, there's two ways you can do that. You can either do this, which would be D3E plus a prime team, and you can certainly do that. Or you can put in the comments, which is what's happened here, dagger team. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, it's up to you. But the good thing about the note is because it represents what's on the brain will kick in here in a second, the vassal map. So whatever on the vassal map, you'll see that there. Now the note can be used for other things as well. So sometimes you may prefer to put the plus PT, prime team, because of course, you know, I think it's Marshall team for the IC, Dagger team for the Klingons. They've got different names for them, but PT is prime team. That's the generic name for the unit. So you could put PT there, but either way, noting that the fact there is a prime team on that unit on the map. Now, let's go to fleets. So, for example, you'll notice here there's a number of these units in bold. So we got red, home, JTF alpha, JTFG. I just put G for gamma because, and sometimes I'll put in just JTFA or JTFB. Either way, very clearly designating what this fleet is. So as we work our way down, you got a bunch of them. Now, what I do is, generally speaking, I don't touch the fleet boxes unless I'm moving ships in and out. So, for example, here you can see that JTF alpha has a bunch of ships that are moving. So in JTF alpha, there is currently a D4C. Stop it. A D4C that's crippled. I think I may have doubled this up somehow. I'll have to go check the map, but I don't know that there's two D4Cs. Maybe there are two D4Cs. Anyway, D4C, 3 F4s and 4 F4s. So there's a total of 7 F4s in that fleet box. Now, what I've done here is I've indicated that the D4Cs and 3 of the F4s are going to remain in JTF alpha, but 4 of those F4s, the ones that were being repaired in my previous turn, are going to move and join JTFG. So in Joint Task Force Gamma, they're going to move to Joint Task Force Gamma. Then in Joint Task Force Gamma, I show the 6 F4s that are currently in that fleet, and then I note the 4 F4s that are coming from JTFA, which is this here, and are going to R44, which is where JTF Gamma is. So you can see these two are related, and this helps the GM. Daniel, you can let me know how you like this. This helps the GM properly track where stuff is going, and you're not going to sort of double dip, because as you're manipulating the map, you know where these things are going to go. So at the end of the day, JTF Gamma should have a total of 10 F4s in it, from 4 of them coming from JTFA, by example. Same thing with South Fleet, Empress Fleet, and so on. Now, with new builds, what I put in here is I designate the ships that I'm building every turn in new builds, and you can see that this is where I put those ships. So I have a D6M, 5 E4Ms, and an F. That should be an F4, not an F5. Pardon me. I don't have F5s. And so they're built in the hex LL47. That's my home world, and that's where my slipways are. Now you can see here that I've got their destination, which is South Fleet, and JTFA. I also put a note here to indicate that they're strat moving there. Now, why do I do that? Because if you're the GM and you're looking at this and you say that's outside your operational movement, outside the range of your operational movement for the 2 top cells here, that would be 6 movement for a Mera ship, but I'm indicating the strat move to tell that I'm strat moving them, which means that that movement happens at the very end of my turn when strat movement occurs. So that's how that works. Now, here's the box that maybe not all of you have in your brain will kick in here in a second. I'll just take a quick sip of coffee to help my brain catch up. For all of you that might remember, there's always that buffering time with some of our older computers. It'll freeze and it'll be like buffering. I feel like that's my brain sometimes, especially on the weekend. Okay, so the intent is where I will put in sort of general description of what it is that I'm doing for various things. So for example, here, I will say that I put in as a general note, and I try and keep this relatively simple. Let me emphasize that. Simple. I keep it simple. What do I keep it? Simple. That's right. So I keep it simple and concise as far as what it is that I'm trying to do. There is a tendency for those of us who are rather detail-oriented to get into the minutia and write a novel about what it is that we want to do. There's more than one player who's done that over the history. I've been guilty of it myself. So in order to try and give the GM clear and understandable and digestible information about or direction or instruction about how I want to move my ships and ensure that it happens, I keep it really concise as much as I can. And I try and communicate intent as opposed to the micromanagement of where specific stuff goes, if that makes sense. So here, for example, I say Klingon forces will move to pin Carnarvon forces that enter the neutral zone. This is a carryover from my learned experience with the Carnarvon earlier in this game. If you will remember, those of you who have played, that the Carnarvon, while I was at war with the Romulans, came through the back door. They Hershey highwayed me while I was otherwise occupied. And I didn't have any instructions or standing orders to be able to deal with that event as it occurred. That being said, I didn't have any ships there either, so it wouldn't have mattered. So now that I have ships in the area, what I've done is I've written in orders to be able to respond to the Carnarvon should they do something like that again. So as I've written it here, I just say that my ships will move to pin Carnarvon forces should they come. It's a generic thing so that I can just have some kind of reaction without being nuanced about exactly what specific stuff I want to do. There may be times when specificity is important, but in the general intent cell that I have here, I'm just keeping it really simple. So, for example, here I say that tugs and convoys conducting construction will remain in place because you could interpret Klingon forces will move to pin Carnarvon forces that enter the neutral zone. So if I have a tug in the middle of construction and Carnarvon forces move, that tug might move to pin them. So I want to make sure that that doesn't, for whatever reason, happen. So tugs and basically things doing construction stay doing the construction. Then also, if I were to be attacked by some reason, like attacked by someone I don't know, I have a contingency in here for that, which is if attacked by another player, emphasis another player, not a non-player faction like the Juggernauts or Pirates or something like that, max build. So regardless of whatever I've decided to build that turn, maximum build of a D6, 3 F4s, and 3 E2s, which I'll have to adjust this to E4Ms. Thank you for taking me through that. 3 E4Ms, and then move new builds to the closest base or supply node towards the point of attack. So, for example, if that was the Romulans doing a Carnarvon maneuver on me, for example, while I was over on the east side, because right now, if you look at the map, I don't have a lot on the west side of my border with the Romulans, then I would max build and I'd move them to the nearest base station that's close to where they attacked. Because understandably, if they attack me, they might pop a base or two. So I want to move my ships to the closest base that I can defend or move from to be able to respond to that attack. Fair? And so in that context, what you want to do, or my advice is, in the intent tab, is keep it general as far as a general description of the sort of general outcome that you want to do or want to have happen, not the how that outcome is going to occur. Let the GM work as best as they are able to fulfill your intent, because you will never know, 9 times out of 10, what the map is doing that will trigger one of these things. Like you don't see it in real time. Like we were standing over the board as players and you would see that, you know, for example, the Romulans are crossing the border, and as the Klingon player, oh, I'm going to react, and I'm going to react this guy here and then this guy there, and away you go. So you can't do that in real time. In the context of this play-by-mail model that we have, you have to provide that instruction, that general description of what kind of outcome or response you like to have. You got to provide that to your GM in a way that they can understand and implement, which is the reason why we keep it simple. Have I pounded that point in enough? All right. So here we go. So let's say pay no attention to the man. Where are we at here? Bill, you can check, but you can never leave. You can check in, but you can never leave. HH37. Daniel, for example, I put that note on Home Fleet Cap plus PT to remind me that if it explores, it has a cruiser and a prime team. Yeah, because prime teams increase your ability to explore stuff. So that's really important. Daniel Eastland, it is a lot of work for the player, but Tony's fleet breakdown charts does help avoid miscommunication. And trust me, if you're the player and ships don't go where you want them to go, man, that's annoying. God, it's frustrating. And then you have this like back and forth about what it is that you do. And at the end of the day, if you don't have the wherewithal to clearly communicate with your GM in the way that they want to be communicated with, then that's on you as a player. Because it's the GM is the referee, and at the end of the day, what the GM says is what the GM says. Now, of course, we're all reasonable, wonderful people who like to have fun in this game, and we like to do the best. And I will give Daniel, and I think everyone would give Daniel the credit that he is due, because he bends over backwards to make sure that what it is that everyone wants to do happens the way they want to do it. But it is incumbent on us as players, when you're playing in a campaign, to make it as easy as possible for the GM to be able to get and understand what it is that you want to do. Because if you make it hard, there's going to be a point where they're going to have so much that they're doing, they're just not going to be able to do it for you. And that'll be frustrating for you as a player. Daniel, if you prefer, I can use G Sheets, Google Sheets. Yeah. Daniel, I very much prefer G Sheets, but didn't want to demand them since some have difficulty with it. Whereas Jim says, I didn't give anyone a choice. I can do either, whatever makes it easier for you. Yeah, I used to use Excel, and then actually the Into the Void campaign sort of prompted me to switch to G Sheets or Google Sheets. Like I say, little tweaks here and there that make it sort of like irritate me about Google Sheets versus Excel. But at the end of the day, it's like 95% the same, so it doesn't matter. All good in the hood. All right. So let's go to the MSIT and let's look at this. So for the uninitiated, this might seem like a bit of overwhelm. You're like, what the hell am I looking at, Tony? Well, the black bars are the titles or the categories of these different units that you can purchase. For example, while Stellar Fortress is a category, you can see I don't have anything there. Star bases. Under the category of star bases, you can see I have a YDK and an SBM, which is in red because I don't have that available to build to me. As we go further down, there's BATS, BSM, MB, mobile bases, MB, by the way, monitors, light monitors, and so on and so on. So there's ships that are highlighted in white that are ships that you can build. And then there are ships in red, which aren't available yet. Why aren't they available, Tony? Well, because there is, if you look in this category here, there is a arrival date for a lot of these things. Now, these arrival dates are determined by a combination of once a tech is discovered, the time, sort of the lag time after that tech is discovered, the date of implementation or when that tech was supposed to arrive. And these dates are all based off of sort of default references. Give you an example. The BSM, Battle Station Middle Era, is arriving in year 120. Now, if we go down here, you will notice that, for example, in the large auxiliary, there's a bunch of 120 items that are in the white. And you're like, why isn't that white for you, Tony? And actually, it should be. Let's just do that right now. We'll just turn this. We'll turn this white. Actually, I'll do it this way because it'll be a little bit easier. But this is a perfect example. So I know that this unit is available for me, and so I'm going to make it white, because I know it's already available to me, and I'll show you that in a second. So the BSM, by example, becomes available to you once you have base tech, the right base tech, and M-era technology. So that usually comes in that is the default year of 120. So that this arrival date is all based on the reference point of when, without any money spent on research and development, when they would nominally arrive. And so the YBS we start off at in year 65, the BSM is year 120, and so on and so forth. You can see here that, for example, the YBS is a two-step construction process, or it takes 2 turns. And then, of course, you've got what can build it. You can build it with a convoy or tug. It costs you 10 EP to build. And if you wanted to salvage it for whatever reason, you would get 5 EP if you salvaged it. Here is the sort of the information about it. So it has it is a base hull, which means it's sort of like a default template that other things can be built off of. It has 2 levels of EW that it can, basically a high and low power. It can give you 2 points of EW, but it only has 2 attack factors if it does that, or it can give you 1 point of EW, and then it'll have 4 attack factors. As you can see, it has a 4 attack, 8 defense stat, so that if you want the 4 attack, you get 1 EW. If you want a 2 attack, you get 2 EW. You can see here that it can repair 2 points of damage. It has SIDS, or Starbase Incremental Damage System. Each one of those incremental damage categories is 4 damage. That is noticeably different than, where is it? One of these guys is 4.5. Which one is 4? Oh, yeah, okay. So the BSM, by example, which is the M or the middle era variant of the YBS, or like the upgrade for it, it's important to note that the BSM has EW of 2 versus the 1 for the YBS. It can repair 2 points of damage. Its SIDS are 4.5 points of damage, not just 4. And there is modules that you can attach to a BSM, which, that we won't address that today in this tutorial. So that gives you a quick little example of what you can see there. Now, we talked about converting, for example. Let me show you a quick conversion. Let's use the D4s here as an example. So the D4 is my default, for the Klingon, the default Y-era cruiser. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of variants that come from the D4. The D4N, which is a diplomatic cruiser, the E, which is the survey cruiser, the J, which is a penal ship, that's a Klingon-specific thing, the D4C, which is a command cruiser, the G, which is a commando ship, and so on. So you can see here in the conversion category, this is the cost that it takes to convert it from a D4. You can see here, for example, D4, it doesn't cost you anything to convert a D4 to a D4. That's the base hull. If you wanted to form or create a D4E from a base D4, it'll cost you 4 EP to do that upgrade or conversion. Now, a 4 EP conversion is categorized as what's called a major conversion, which is anything above in the Y era, which would be 3 points and above. And those can only be done at your space dock, so basically your capital system. Anything 2 points and below can be done at a YDK. So, for example, a D4C, by example, the command cruiser, is something that I would have to build a D4, and then I would have to spend 1 EP to convert it from a D4 to a D4C. And that would go in, by example, the conversion row here. When you're talking about, I would build a D4, and then I would put in here, convert D4 to D4C. Make sense? So, as you can see here, there's a bunch of ships that are available. You can see there's my D6M. That's what I have available. And so one of the things that's important to note here is that as you go through your, research and development tech, at the bottom of your balance sheet, you will have hulls. The GM will fill this out. They will fill out when certain hulls become available to you. You can see the B4B, which is the M era improvement to the B4, was available in year 70 for me. The Tug B, which is like a battle tug, is available as of turn 71. The D6G, which is that commando ship, is available in turn 73, and so on and so on and so on. So you can see that that's how that works. So as those ships become available, it is incumbent on you as a player to go into your MSIT and verify that those things are highlighted as white and not red for you. And if you need to double check with the GM, please do so. Don't rely on the GM to do this for you because it's irritating for them. But when you get your turn sheet back, make sure that you go through whatever you get that turn and that you've highlighted them as white versus the red in your MSIT. Fair? And as far as just a quick navigation, as you go through the different techs, you can click on, so in the row for tech, you can see here this is a W era generic or G or general, M era G. There's no Y era G because W and Y are basically the same, and so on and so forth. So if you want to highlight, you hit this little funnel and you can highlight, for example, GW, GWG. If I want to see what the GW and GWG units are, bam! All of a sudden it throws in all those units. But that's so noisy, I don't need that. So I'm going to take those out and bring that down to here. If I also didn't want to see all the M era stuff, then I can just show the Y era stuff, by example. But you can go in here and you can quickly click on M and MG. Make sure that when you're doing M, you do the MG as well, because that'll show you all the sort of the generic units that you can have, and so on and so forth. So hopefully that is useful. Okay, so let's go back here real quick. I'll pull up the R&D, which I'm sure you're all very curious about. Let's go back into here. Okay, so Jim, laughing out loud. Daniel, you must research base station tech or BS tech to be able to build a BSM. If you spend nothing on research, the tech will arrive in year 120. Yeah, we'll go over that in a second here. This can be seen in the tech tree tab of the spreadsheet. Jim, that means that a single YDK can do 2 such conversions since they are minor conversions, like the 1-point conversion he's referring to there. Eugene, movement orders. Please illustrate how you are giving orders to survey ships since the results are unknown. I don't know what you mean, Eugene. I will move them into a certain hex. They will, when they go into a fog of war hex, they'll do the discovery or the survey roll, and they either discover it or they don't. I don't understand. I don't know what other orders or intent you would want to give them. So if you could perhaps expand on that question a little bit more and give me more detail on what it is you're looking for, I'd be happy to answer your question. While I'm waiting on that, let's go into research. So here's a little insight onto why my research is so high. Okay. So you can see here, there is a crap ton of ones here. So let's just do the basics. On the far left, you can see a number of colored categories. These are the different sort of macro themes when it comes to the different technologies. Econ, strategic, weapons, macro systems, microsystems. I'm going to switch to the next tab. When we go to the tech tab, you can also see these highlighted here. Economic, strategic, weapons, macro, micro. So there's a correlation, or they tie in the R&D and the tech tree. Okay? Then we have the individual technologies. So for example, in econ, we've got construction, large ships, logistics, repair, and supply. We go back to the tech tree, you can see construction, large ships, logistics, repair, supply. Fair? That's the relationship between them. Now you've got some, for example, here that are grayed out. Those are unavailable to me. Why is that? Let's go to the tech tree and I'll show you. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here so it's a little bit easier to see. Zoom, let's go to 150. Okay, so as we scroll down, you will see that in order for large ships to open up as a tech, I need a prerequisite of DN slipways. But in order to get the DN slipway, and this was a particular point of frustration for me in the Lost Stars campaign, in order to get the DN slipway, I need to have the DNE. What is that? That is a specific ship design that needs to be available to me. Now, for the Klingons, DNE is a generic term for escort DN. We'll call it like a light dreadnought. But for the Klingon specifically, I'm going to quickly switch over to the MSIT here. Hold on. Battleships, dreadnoughts. So for the dreadnoughts, that is specifically the C6. The C6 is the equivalent of the DNE. So I need to have that ship available to me before I can have the DN slipway. Note the arrival date of 150. 150. If I don't do anything to this, the nominal arrival date is 150. By comparison, 120 is MTech. Now, while I may get an MTech start date of whenever it is, whenever I get that MTech, in order to bring the 150 forward, I would need to research M ship designs, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, so let's zoom back in here so it's a little bit easier to see. 200. Okay, so we've got the specific technology listed in this row. Then you've got the total amount of RP that you've invested. This is the modified arrival date. So based on all the research that you're doing, this is the new date that things are going to arrive on. This is the nominal, as if nothing had changed, no research had been done. This is the baseline arrival date for this technology. This category here is the next tech that you're going to discover. So for example, let's use construction as our example here. We can see that construction has 80 EPs, or research points invested. The modified arrival date is year 110 spring, and the normal arrival date for this is 150 spring. So if we go to the tech tree, I can see that 150 is when DN slipway would normally arrive. But in order to get the DN slipway, in order to be able to build it, that is, I still need that DNE ship design. Okay. So but I'm going to be able to discover that technology, and the only thing that I would be waiting on in order to be able to get the DN slipway tech is the DNE ship design. Once I have that, I've got all the research done, and we're good to go. By another example, you can see that logistics, I don't have any research in it. The nominal arrival date for Logistica support is 120. Let's go back to the tech tree. You can see that year 120, that's when we get logistical support, which allows you 2 convoys, and they've got rule numbers here that you can go check out. Allows you to do 2 military raids and provide extended supply from 2 units concurrently at the same time. So that's something to look at. So that's how that kind of works. So again, as a recap, you've got the theme, you've got the individual technology, you got the modified arrival date, as in based on all the research that you've done, the default, and then the next tech that you're discovering. Now, as we move further right, you can see that in my case, I've got blacked out here for Y and M, and then there's GW. So these are the different milestones of technology. You've got Y era, middle era, and general war GW. As you go down the list, you can see that construction is a required technology for Y, M, and GW. When we go to the tech tree, you can see at the very top here, Y prerequisites, M prerequisites, GW prerequisites, and construction is in each of those. So those tie in that way. This, I find, is an easier way to visually appreciate what are the required techs. So you can see GW Tech has all these different categories as well. When they're highlighted black in this case, those are the techs that I've established and have, and then the ones in white are the ones that I'm yet working towards. In that same vein, when you look at weapons, by example, you can see phasers. I've maxed out all the research I can do in phasers. This is sort of like a dead tech branch at this point. Can't go any further. Same thing with heavy phasers. Same thing with disruptors. Once I've discovered the MTech variant of that, can't go any further. That's it. That's all. That's why they're blacked out. As opposed to the grayed out, as in large ships and then fighters down here, where I'm not able to do any research in those yet. That's what's going on. Make sense? Okay. So, Oh, right. So I'm going to have to go back and change the color on something in a second. So I'm going to zoom out here a little bit to show something. Okay. So this is important with regards to bases. So we saw on my R&D that I have heavy phasers. So when we go to the tech tree, we can see that the prerequisite for phaser 4 has been discovered. So I'm going to highlight that in black. I'm going to change the text to white. That's been discovered. What I have not got is I have not got the base tech completed for base technology. If we go to the R&D table, you can see that base station will become available for me at 110 fall. So when I went in here and changed the BS to white, I was a little presumptive. I got to turn that back to red. And this is why it's important to have that conversation with the GM so that you make sure you don't make that either one of you isn't making mistakes and that you're all on the same page. So we just saw me make a mistake in real time, and then I corrected that as I went through. So phaser 4 has been discovered. Still need to get BS, battle station technology, but I have the prerequisite of M-era technology, which is required here. So once I get the BS in 110 spring, I think it was, then I can move that forward. Okay, now, one thing to note when it goes to the general sort of managing of these techs, as best practice, and you'll see this as an example. So let's look at command and control by example. Now you can see that command and control has a modified arrival date of, and I'll zoom in a little bit more here, so do 150. Okay, you can see that the modified arrival date for command and control is 109 fall, right? Or sorry, 109 spring. If I scroll down this way, you will see that I have research and tech in up to 109 fall. Now, let me clarify. You can only ever put 1 point in each one of these boxes. You cannot put 2 or 4 or 10 or whatever it is. 1 point per turn. So when you put in a number here, it'll only ever be 1. But if I take away this 1, which is 109 fall, what do we see? The modified arrival date now changes. It is now 109 fall. So what I've done here is I'm putting in as many points in the row to putting as many points in the row so that I don't go past the arrival date, the modified arrival date, because it can make it incredibly burdensome for the GM to do the math every time, because I have to go through your R&D table and retweak it to make sure that you haven't invested more than is required. Let me give you an example. So right now you might get little things like, for example, when, for example, I had a recent encounter with the Juggernauts. When I defeated the Juggernauts, they gave me a tech boost. When I did that tech boost, that might have adjusted some of the technologies that I had here, and I hadn't readjusted my R&D. But you want to, as a best practice, only put the minimum number of points to get to the next tech level, because it makes it easier and simpler for the GM to manage. By contrast, if I were to put in a whole bunch more in command and control here up to year 112, then all of a sudden you can see that it's down to 106 spring. But that's not the real date that it's going to arrive, because 106 spring takes into account all that extra money that you put in to bring it forward. So the GM would have to, in 106 spring, manually delete all these extra added points and assess whether you actually get that tech in that turn. Incredibly cumbersome and slows the GM down. And since we've got so many players in these campaigns, it is incumbent on us as players to manage this and keep it concise. So again, changing that to 109 fall. If I were to put the 1 in 109 fall, it'll push it back to 109 spring. So I will watch this until 109 spring. And then in 109 fall, once I know that tech is arriving that turn, at that point, I'll start readjusting or replan out the other points that I'm going to put into that particular tech. Fair? Does that make sense? One other thing that I'm going to show you as well is this category at the very bottom. And let me change the zoom. This category at the very bottom called accelerated designs. So in accelerated designs, you've got three categories for the three different technologies above W, which is Y, M, and GW. You can see here that for every point of added research that you get in Y ship, it'll cost you 2 EP, 4 for M, and 6 for GW. Now, if you were to pile in a whole bunch of points and do it the same way that you do every other tech here, it's really going to screw up the arrival date for all the different technologies. And just like we said, it was a manually burdensome process for the GM to monitor your R&D if you did it that way. The same thing happens for the accelerated ship designs, because if we go back to this, you can see that every time you do that, the GM is going to have to manage all these arrival dates every single time, because they have to apply just 1 point per turn and then shift them in that way. Because if you invest a whole bunch of points ahead of turn 75, by example, those don't affect the arrival date of the thing in turn 75. It can be very confusing and irritating. So best practice to be able to keep that as simple as possible for the GM is, in the turn that you're submitting, decide if you're going to apply a point or more in that accelerated ship design. Now, Tony, why on earth would you spend money in accelerating your M ship designs when it costs 4 EP? As we went back to in our balance sheet, holy crap, you're spending a lot on R&D. This is why. Going back to the tech tree, D, N, E. Now, this is a sort of a Klingon-specific experience, but based on my lessons learned from playing the Klingons in the previous campaign before the abrupt stop, I didn't appreciate this and understand this when I was having my conversations with the GM of that campaign. It wasn't effectively explained to me that this DNE was a ship design that I needed to have. That was extremely frustrating for me at the time, because at the point that it was realized that I couldn't build the DN slipway, which had been the plan all along, I needed that DNE slipway, or DNE ship design. So in order to be able to bring it forward, remember, MTech comes at 120, but as we looked at on the MSIT, the C6 has an arrival date of 150. In order to bring that forward and get it at the same time as I get the construction DN slipway, I have to accelerate the designs. Now, every faction will be unique and different in this context, so you may have a different sort of situation for you. But in my case, in order to be able to get the DN slipway, I need to accelerate the designs and bring that forward. And then I can build the DN slipway and yada, yada, yada. So that is why, that is the rationale why I am doing that. Now, it's incredibly expensive and arguably inefficient, but it does give you the perk of having some other ship designs, because it's not just one ship design. It's all your M-era ship designs. Or in this case, M-era could be GW or Y-Tech respectively, but it brings all those designs forward. A perfect example of where this is incredibly useful is for the Romulans or the Federation, by example. As I mentioned in a previous live stream, some of the factions have a sort of a well-flushed out menu of introduction dates, meaning that they'll have it sparsed out over time. Certain Klingons, Federation, Romulans are examples of this, and Gorn even. Their ships designs don't come all at once. They're spread out over time. So if you want those coming faster, you invest money in accelerating ship designs. Contrary to that, for example, the Carnivons, Paravians, and a couple of others, they come right up front. Like a lot of their big, good M designs arrive on MTech Day. The day that you discover MTech, boom, you get some of your best designs. The cruiser, the M-era cruiser, the CAM, I think it is, for the Carnivon, or maybe it's just, yeah, CAM. It's a straight 8 cruiser, 8-8. By comparison, the D6 is a 7. and it doesn't get better until the D7, or sorry, the D6 is a straight 7. The D7 is an 8-7. The Federation, for example, has a 7-8 cruiser, and so on. So there's all these sort of issues that come up. Let me dive into the chat again, because I know there's lots of questions. Oh, I want to give you an example of battle orders as well in a moment here. Just one sec. Let's... Okay. Kevin. That matters when we do more than one turn at a time. Yes, and so I'm going to give you an example of this, and I'm going to show you the ISC sheet when we're doing bulk orders. So key for context here. Everything we've just described is once we're in sort of like the regular cadence of the game, meaning one turn at a time. When you're submitting 10 turns at a time or more, there's a slightly different example that I'll use for that, and I'll show that to you in a moment. Lord Lawless, I enter lists of hexes. I want them to explore one after another as they successfully survey. Yes, so I will show you this sort of intent for exploration. I'll show you that in a moment. In the early game where you give several turns at once, you give a bunch of move orders as if they succeeded every time. Let the GM know that your exploration ships will only move after a success. William Linton, I've always given a generic order, move survey ships around homeworld clockwise, expand. Yep, yeah. All at once at range 1 until all hexes are surveyed, etc., etc. Generic orders are also good. I'll move exploration ships as best I can according to them. Jim, early dreadnought to be exact. Early dreadnought. Okay, there you go. Yeah, not escort. Hey. Okay, there we go. There is no SC2 escort. Early dreadnought then. Which is kind of ironic because there are other dreadnoughts in the Klingon shopping list, right? Other, like you have a Y-era dreadnought, W-era dreadnought. Anyways. Right. Does a miscellaneous adge in logistics R&D of plus 20 tugs apply? Oh, okay. So let me quickly go to that. So when we go to the generic tech tree, you will notice that certain factions have bonuses or negatives when it comes to discovering certain techs. Specifically, for example, the Klingons. You'll see the note here. They get a plus 178 research points to discovering battleships, but battleships only. That's because it's a historic thing about how the Klingons built battleships. If we look at logistics, the Klingons get plus 50 for the theater transport. The Romulans get plus 20 for tugs. Remans get the plus 50 for the transport, and so on. And so there's just little notes here that give you context for certain factions getting a bonus on getting certain techs earlier. Gorn Repair Pod, for example. Federation and Klingons get plus 6 for battle cruiser, heavy battle cruiser slipways, and so on and so on. So there's just little notes here when it comes to little tweaks depending on the faction, by example. Hopefully that answers that question. Daniel, yes. Okay, so I've given you all that I can give you when it comes to the Klingons. Let me show you, by comparison, the ISC. Stand by. All right. So I'm going to show you the ISC, and I'll change the zoom here in a moment. Is this the one I'm sharing? No, hold on. Wrong sheet. Stand by. Stand by. Is this the one? Yeah. Okay, this is the good one. I'm going to change the view to... Stop that. Behave, Google Sheets. Okay. All right, here we go. So this is a different sheet completely. This is the Interstellar Concordian. This is the Into the Void sheet for me. So all the same things that we discussed before. We've got, in this case, I've got peace with P, limited war status with L, and so on and so forth. I've got build orders here. And then this is going to change based on lessons learned. But when we initially started Into the Void, Jim, our GM for Into the Void, had asked that you put your intent orders on this page. This is now changed to putting them on the movement page, which is what I do, for example, with the Klingons. But let me give you an example of that generic exploration orders that you were talking about before. So this might be a little, oh, of course, my head's in the way. Let me, okay. So here's an example of what I put in for generic orders for the content here, or for the intent orders. So I break it into categories. So exploration. The YFAL, which is the large exploration freighter, will move with YF. Sorry, that's an assault, a large that is a large assault freighter. Will move with the YFAS, the small exploration freighter. YFAL will move with YFAS escort groups. Oh my God. The YFAL, the large assault freighter, will move as an escort with first, second, and third exploration fleets. So as has been in Jim's game, you can put these exploration fleet boxes and then put ships in them. So I put a bunch of ships in those exploration fleets, and I had the assault freighters moving as escorts for those exploration fleets. Each exploration fleet will move north, southwest, southeast direction to edge of supply, 2 hexes. I put that in brackets. Once explored to 2 hexes, turn clockwise to explore hexes closest to homeworld and move out to 2 hexes. So, as that looks on the map, they will move out in sort of the hex cardinal directions, so north, southwest, southwest, southeast. And then they will start moving clockwise. So they will move out to 2 hexes, and once they've explored out to 2 hexes, then they will start moving clockwise and doing a circular motion, much like what Bill was describing for his. So that's just a generic exploration instruction. I also, especially when you're doing 10 turns at a time or bulk turns, I also put in categories for when to stop the turn and return it to me. For example, stop the turn if a planet, colony, or greater is discovered, or if attacked. And then in this, I put in notes, good to go up to 10, as in turn 10. So that's sort of like a generic thing. I since adapted that, and I'll just move my head. Can I move the comment? Here, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here. Zoom to 150. So you can see here I've got intent orders that are blocked out in black, and then ones that are yellow. The ones that are black have been done. The yellow have not. So I'll give you an example of the more recent ones. So I've simplified it a little bit. Exploration. The YFAL will move with the YFAS escort groups. Exploration first, second, and third, etc. Third exploration will move south. Second will move to continue to move clockwise. First will continue clockwise. Once explored to 2 hexes, turn clockwise to explore, and so on. Stop turn if pirates are discovered, because that started to happen. If non-ISC faction is discovered. If planet, colony, or greater is discovered. If attacked. Or if my discovered EP pushes me above -1 EP in deficit spending. Because remember what I said before about you cannot save money and carry a balance at peace. You've got to basically, the best way to manage that is small deficit spending. So what I've done is I put in a specific category here to say stop the turn if I get basically above a negative balance so that I can adjust my econ. I specifically put here that in turn 7 something was going to happen and then go until end of 7. So this has just been a copy and paste that I rolled out to 8, and there's an event occurring in turn 7, and once it's resolved, I'll amend that as we go forward. So hopefully that sort of like helps contextualize some of what we're talking about when we're talking about individual turns, bulk turns, and all the details in between. Let's see here. Show the map then, Tony. Oh, goodness. No, I don't have the map, Jim, because you haven't sent it to me. I have a version of the map. No, I'm not going to show the map. So anyways, that's what's going on here when it comes to the turns, how to fill out the various the various items on the spreadsheet, how they all interact, and what you're looking at and what you're seeing when you do that. So, question for all of you. Have I answered your questions? Was this helpful? And is there anything else that you would like to ask as we are waiting? I'm going to take a quick sip of water and let you populate anything in the chat. Wow, that's a lot of water. As we're waiting for any and all questions to populate in the chat, I just want to say thank you again for the helping get to the coffee goal today. So thank you very, very much for that and proving that concept correct. A good question, I guess, for all of you would also be, what do you think is a good goal for each live stream? Do you think 2 coffees, 1 coffee, 10 coffees? I mean, is there a goal? I mean, we'll adjust it as we go as the group who participate in the live streams grows. But what do you think is a good number? Because at the end of the day, we want it to be a goal that can be accomplished, that is not overly demanding, but one that sort of like helps us drive towards an objective to be able to, for example, be able to get Paul to be able to produce some more CGI, to get Kevin a little compensation, a little something, maybe a New Worlds mug. For the work on the module and, other things that go on in this stuff. So, reminder about battle orders, Eugene says. Okay, battle orders. Let's see here. I know that I have, at one point I had written out battle orders. Let's see, what do we got? So I have a number of different ways that I write out battle orders, but I'm trying to think of a good example of battle orders that I have. There was a point where looks like I don't have that saved anytime recently. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's create a new sheet, and I'll walk you through as if I was creating them right now. Okay, let's change the view here. Can I change the zoom? Why won't it let me change the zoom? Oh, there it is. We're going to change it to 150. Okay, let's whoops. Let's go here. Let's dismiss pages for it. Try it. There we go. Okay. So let's figure out some battle. I'm gonna change the zoom. Let's make it even bigger. There we go. Battle orders. In advance, I'm just gonna say please apologize. Please forgive my spelling, as I'm sure I'll make mistakes as we go here. I'm sure Google Sheets will remind me. All right, so battle orders. So what I'd like to start off with is situation. Incidentally, this will likely follow the NATO standard SMESC format. Oh, that's in caps. Okay, so situation, mission, execution, SMESC, signals, and support, and command. This is the NATO standard SMESC format in the military used to be able to deliver quick and effective orders. So in my example, I'll create a situation. So the situation is, for example, in the ISC campaign, I will say something along the lines of Iron Seed, which is the name of my faction. So the Iron Seed, what did I say? The Iron Seed collection, concordium, coalition, something like that. Anyways, I redid the ISC acronym to to spell out my Iron Seed faction. So anyways, Iron Seed. Iron Seed, or we'll just say ISC. ISC, Exploration Freighter, seized by local pirates. Yeah, so ISC, Exploration Freighter, seized by local pirates. Mission. Recover Exploration Freighter. Or destroy all pirates. Execution. So in the execution, I might indicate that, for example, let's say these are W era ships. So let's say WCA. Let's say I have a WCA there. WCA will be command ship. Keeping in mind that prior to writing out these battle orders, you will have received a battle email from the GM, and the GM will indicate to you what ships are in the attack. So you've got your ships and the enemy ships, so you have what's there. So for the purposes of that, let's say we know what this is. It'll be 1 CA. We have 5 WFFs, by example. That's what I've got in my in my fleet. So WCA will be command ship. Best battle line for attack factors. Let's make this number 5 WFFs and 5 WDDs. And the reason why I'm doing in excess of 10 units is because the WCA, by example, has a command factor of 8. So there'll only ever be 9 ships in the battle line at any one time. So we have more than 9 ships here, and so this will sort of give you a sense of what I would do in this example. So the WCA will act as the command ship. Best battle line for attack factors, meaning that I write this because if I have ships that are crippled, then I'm going to move ships that have a better attack factor into the line and remove those crippled ships. But to emphasize that point, swap cripples with non-crippled ships. Best battle line for attack factors, swap cripples with non-crippled ships. I will say that WFFs, so the order in which they will take damage, will take crippling damage. WDD will take crippling damage. And the WCA will take crippling damage. This is the order in which those ships will be crippled. And then the order in which they will be destroyed, let's say, for example, I wanted to change it up. WDD will be destroyed. WFF will be destroyed. And then the WCA will be destroyed. That's pretty specific, but nonetheless maps out the order in which I want them to be crippled and then the order in which I want them to be destroyed. Now here's the fun stuff. If all WFFs are crippled, retreat. So if I didn't want to get to a point where all my ships were crippled and are potentially destroyed, I will put up an order like this where I say, once all my frigates are crippled, then retreat. And in signals and support, I might say retrograde orders, retrograde, thank you, to, I don't know, XX56. Let's say that's a hex number. So retrograde to FF56, or retrograde cripples to closest YDK for repair. Non-crippled ships remain in retreat hex, by example. And command, like I say, WCA act as command ship. So why is it important for you to designate the command ship? Because you might have multiple ships that have a command factor of whatever. Could be the base that you want to act as a command ship if you're having this combat or this battle at a base, or there's something else going on there. So you can do this piece like that. Now, as I pull this up, I'm going to see if I can pull up my email and see if I can find an example of a good battle order that I've previously written. So, battle orders. Here we go. Here's a great example. Can I change the view on this? Okay. I'm going to share with you this. Here is my Juggernaut battle by example. So we've got the Klingon force, which was a YBS, 3 D4Cs, 2 D4s, 1 tug, 19 F4s, and a dagger team. And this is the Juggernaut force. So these are my battle orders. I put a little like commentary here, but these are the battle orders. So I said that there would be an approach battle, and I thought that there would be three rounds of battle in the approach battle, but that wasn't the case, and there was a reason for that. So D4C is command ship, 9 times F4, max burr. This is in the approach battles. Swap crippled ships for non-crippled ships. If rescue tug can be used once per round, then use rescue tug for destroyed units. If it can only be used once, then save for the D4C in future rounds. I can look that up. I can look up the rule right now. So this was just like a quick back and forth with Daniel. Base battle. So in the base battle, the D4C was the command ship. There was the YBS, because YBS doesn't take up a fleet box or a take up command factor. I was going to use 2 D4Cs. 2 D4s. The remainder would be F4s. The rescue tug, which is a rescue tug box on the battle board. Prime team will attempt to capture crippled ships. EW for best effect, because I had the base, so I had EW as a component. So applying EW for best effect, which in this case most likely would have been just 1 point of EW, because I have a unit with EW. They do not have a unit with EW. And according to the EW rules, if that's the case, I get an automatic shift, and going to 2 points wouldn't have made any difference for the EW shift. I put it in minimum BIR, which is different from the approach battles where I put in max BIR, and then continue attack until the bitter end and or pursue if they retreat. Now, that's a really important thing to think about, is the pursuit battle. At the end of the battle round, you need to make note of whether if you are going to hold your ground. Loud truck goes by. If you're going to hold your ground, are you going to pursue them if they retreat? Because there's an opportunity there to destroy crippled ships and or cause further damage. So you need to put in your orders, if you're going to pursue them, that you're going to pursue them. And of course, there's a bunch of other factors that can go into that. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me go quickly into the chat and discuss. So, Eugene, it looks like you are currently in LW and we limited war and we'll be doing battle soon. Is that in your current page? If you're talking about the Into the Void ISC page, then yes, I was in limited war, and in the context of that campaign, there was a battle. I'm waiting on a battle email. Or the Word doc will work too. Yeah, okay. If you're using a rule that gives you a bonus to a roll, example, landing troop ships, note the rule number in your order so the GM can look it up. Great point. Don't expect the GM to know all the nuances of the rule. Great example. If you're going to use something like that, that's huge, incredibly valuable. In Explain now, What about an approach battle offer? In the Discord, you have made an offer. Is that considered in the battle order? Can they accept? So when you're doing battle emails, you do them in the blind. So like I'll submit my battle orders, the other player will submit their battle orders, and we're not waiting for them to accept the approach battle. So anytime there is a base battle or units acting as bases, like convoys and tugs acting as supply points, by example, assume there is an approach battle, and then discuss in your battle orders what your approach will be if there is an approach battle. If there is not an approach battle, like they don't accept it, then you say, if accepted, these are my battle orders. If not accepted, I retreat, by example, or continue to the base, and then these are my base battle, my battle orders for the battle at the base. And you can write that out, and you can put in like if and. Like if this, then that kind of statements. Like if I have X number of cripples at the end of the approach battle, do this or what have you. But for example, in the example that I just showed you with regards to my battle orders with the Juggernauts, one of the things that was of note was that the Juggernauts did more damage in the round. So there's a rule around approach battles. They did so much damage in the battle round that we skipped straight to the base. Basically, they did one approach battle round, and instead of doing 3, which would be the normal progression, they did so much damage to me that we just went straight to the base. And away we go. So yeah, that's how that worked. If you're doing the approach battle, if you're attacking a base, assume approach, like you have to offer an approach battle, first of all, as an attacker, and then it's up to the defender to accept. So you assume that you're offering it, you make your orders as if you're offering it, and then you say, if accepted, do this. If it's not accepted, do this. And sometimes that means if it's not accepted, I retreat. It just depends. It just depends on what it is that you want to do. Excuse me. Okay. And yeah, so there's no accepting last minute stuff. Like you do that when you submit your battle orders. You do that when you submit the email. Dell, just write, it's clobbering time. There you go. Very true. Bill Linton, some GMs are still learning the ropes. Kevin Conway, is there a list anywhere of generic battle orders and or terms? Even experienced F&E players can use the reference to refresh memories. So Kevin, good question. Is there a template for battle orders? No, to be fair, there is not. However, what I will do, I am just looking up 12. Sorry, I'm just going to put this really quick in the chat. Oh, that's a hot mess, isn't it? Okay. So this is from the, for context, this is a quick reference from Canadian Forces, the 16 steps of battle procedure. You don't need to go through all the 16 steps, but I'm sure I can find a better example of SMESC. 5-paragraph order execution. I'll have to try and find, and maybe we can make a better, we can create like a PDF or something where we can demonstrate the SMESC order format. I mean, yeah, we can create that and sort of make that available on the Discord channel and so on. So we'll have to sort that out. Yeah, that post I put in there is just a hot mess of format. Here's the link. I'll put the link in here. This is where I found it, so you can take a look at that. Anyone who doesn't have any military experience, it's I can understand it being foreign, but anywho. At the end of the day, it's a conversation that you need to have with the GM to be able to understand what it is that they want, how they want it, and so on. And so it's, like I say, it's important to have that conversation and describe that to them. Can the GM send a preferred format to best suit them or suit them, knowing, of course, that one size fits all seldom does? Yeah, no, it's probably a really good idea for us to come up with a standard format so there is a common expectation and clarity around what the standard expectation is. Once we have the standardized format, then we can, you can sort of elaborate off of it. But it gives you at least a baseline reference to be able to understand how it is you want to structure your thought process around communicating your battle orders. And you know what? I'm conscious of not prescribing exactly how it happens so as to eliminate the creativity of individual players. However, at the end of the day, it's all about efficiency for the GM and how the GM wants to be able to consistently read and understand battle orders and understand or be efficient in being able to read and execute the intent as communicated by the players. So, I mean, maybe we do a SMESC format with a commentary box or something like that. We can do something like that. We can work on that. But as of today, right now, we do not have a template. That is something we can certainly work on going forward. Yeah. So with all that said, and as we're sort of now almost 2 hours into the stream, how does that work for all of you? Lesson learned. We'll start talking about creating a standardized format for this, and hopefully that'll work for you. But are there any other comments, queries, or suggestions that anybody has? If so, please send them in the chat now. Otherwise, I'm going to take a little quick sip of coffee here. Any other commentary coming in on the chitter chatter? Don't be shy. All right. Well, ladies and gents, it's been a pleasure being with you today on today's live stream. Thank you very much for taking the time and joining us here. Eugene, will this be posted, and will the July 3rd video be posted? The July 3rd video. What is the July 3rd video? All these videos, this live stream is on our YouTube channel. So you will be able to go back and find this. You'll be able to find this on the channel. Like, this is being live streamed right now. YouTube has a hold of this, and you can go back and reference this video. So that will be the July 3rd video. Oh, the July 3rd when we had our first like intro chat and talk. So I don't have an answer for that. The original intent was to potentially put that up as a private link, but we'll have to figure out or discuss a way forward on that. But hopefully today's discussion about breaking down the understanding the various sheets, as in like what the balance sheet looks like, the movement tab, the research and development, the tech tree, the MSIT, how that all breaks down, and you can understand how that works. And of course, the general idea behind intent. Remember, the into the void. So like, where do you put the intent or the sort of the broad strokes instructions on what you want to do with your stuff, your ships, and so on? That goes on the movement tab. Even though on the into the void, the ISC sheet that I showed you, Jim had originally said he wanted it on the front balance sheet. That has since changed, and now he wants it on the movement tab. That is just exactly what we showed you on the Klingon turn. We put it on the movement tab. So put it on the movement tab makes it easy for the game master to be able to apply your movement or do your movement on the movement sheet, because it's all on one page, one tab. So it's much easier to be able to manage. So more only requests would be for more EP. Yeah, seriously, more money, please. The rules meeting to start the Into the Void campaign. Yes. Okay, got it. Very helpful. I bet Jim's life just got easier times 16. Well, we'll see. We'll see how easy and how much everybody is picking up what we're putting down here when it comes to how to do this this game. So hopefully this works for everybody. Hopefully this is beneficial to all of you, and hopefully this makes it easier for you to be able to understand and to be able to fill out those sheets, those forms, and be able to do good things in your Into the Void campaign. With that said, thank you very much for your help today. And the questions that you've had. I really appreciate all of you helping with sort of flushing out what it is that we're trying to do, trying to discover. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll pop into the Discord channel after this, but for those of you who are part of the community, we'll have a chit chat. And if you're not already part of our community, consider using that link, that QR code, and heading over to Coffee, or if Patreon's more your style, the Patreon link in the description below, and joining our Discord community online. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and I will see you later.